everybody, this is Hua. Welcome back to my YouTube storytelling channel. I am here today to read to you chapter 1 of The Bodyguard and the Courtesan. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy. The lights were dimmed, and Waylon Chang entered the room, and the smell of vanilla and jasmine hit his nostrils. On the bed was a red sash with gold coins sewn all around, and a pair of sandals that were upturned. He set down his sword and removed the heavy armor from his body, dropping it onto the ground. A light flickered, and he turned to catch a curvy body sitting up in bed behind the thin sheets that veiled the bedroom from the other side. Curls cascaded down her back, and he knew those curls on his fingers. "My lord?" she asked, her voice soft and seductive. "Is that you?" Waylon smiled as he moved about and came to the other side, where she was sitting in bed. A thin white gown covered the body he knew. Her lips were swollen, and there was a bruise on her left wrist. When she saw that he noticed it, she hid her arm behind her. There was a mess of clothes near the edge of the bed, and on the top was a man's tunic that had been left behind. "Who is here?" he asked, jealousy coursing through him. "No one," she whispered as she tucked a curl behind her ear. He picked up the tunic and tossed it onto the ground. She eyed it and then looked up at him, her soft brown eyes filling up with sadness. "Maisie, how many times do I have to tell you? Come away with me and get rid of this life. I hate it when I come here and you reek of another man." She wrapped her arms around herself. "Then do not come here." "Are you trying to fight with me? I have just walked off the battlefield with my body intact, while others have lost limbs. I was hoping to come here for a hot bath and some quiet time with you." Maisie looked up and shoved her hands through her hair. "What do you want me to say, my lord? While you are absent, I must keep a job that feeds my belly. I am not born of royal blood, and I must fend to make ends meet. If you do not like sharing me, perhaps you should pick another maiden who is more pure. Society balls are all around town, my lord. Have your pick." Waylon reached over and grabbed her ankles, pulling her forward, and she shrieked. When she brought her hands up to stop him, he captured both in one hand and shoved her down on the bed. Leaning down on her, he ran a finger down her cheek. "Have my pick. I have picked you, Maisie, and that is what I want. But how can I be freed of jealousy when I turn my back and all the men in this kingdom lay their coins at your feet to bed you? I hate the idea of who was here before me and who will come after me." Maisie tried to shove him off, but failed, and a smile came across her face. "You will never know, will you? He may be someone you have killed while in battle, or another man you will be sharing a pint of mead with. Do you find this comical, to mock my pain?" Smiling, she replied, "Of course not, my lord. But it does give me a small bit of satisfaction that I can make you feel so envious." He let her hand go and kissed her deeply before asking, "Who came here? Did he hurt you?" She turned her face away. "No matter if you know or not, you cannot do anything about it. He will return, and I must please him." Waylon hung his head and let out a deep breath. "With the pay I earn, I shall never buy your freedom, I fear." Turning back to face him, Maisie took his face in her hands. I am not the woman you should be chasing, my lord. I have been around too many men and do not deserve to be at your side. When you walk into the palace walls, even the king himself may glance at you wickedly, for he has lain with me. But it is not something you do with your heart. When you lay with these men, it is for business. The pleasure you give only to me, I can accept that. Smiling, she gave him a tender kiss and embraced him. Your lips echo such tender words for me, my lord. How else should I not give you pleasure? But you are right about one thing. Those who seek before you or after you are simply a service I offer. Beyond that is just numbness I veil myself with. Only when you arrive do I finally feel the sense of making love. He pulled away and ran a hand through her curls. Maisie, tell me what I can do to get you out of here. I can only keep men away from you for a week or two before they return. Even then, I will still do that until I can buy your freedom. You know Master Delena would never let you buy me out if you do not offer her a worthy price. I am what is making her the most money here. I will speak with her tonight.
I woke up in the middle of the night.
The office space where Delena was situated was in the far corner where only designated people could enter. But Waylon considered himself designated as he pushed through the beaded strings that hung from the doorway. Soft music played from behind the red veil, and he used his sword to knock twice on the wall. Who enters? Delena asked. Who else but me? Waylon said as he walked around to find her counting coins on the other side. Delena was a curvy woman with short, dark, curly hair and bright green eyes. She wore a revealing black top with a black wraparound skirt that slit in the front to show her slender legs. Waylon, why am I not surprised? She asked. You know why I am here, he said as he crossed his arms. I do not want another man to see Maisie. Delena stood up and shrugged her thin shoulders. You cannot control that, my lord. Here is a place of service and pleasure that the girls offer. If you do not like her to attend another man's needs, simply give me a month's pay for her and I shall keep her locked up. How much for a month's pay? She smirked and sat back down. £15. He dropped his arms. £15? Are you mad? That's 4 months' pay for me. Then you better save up, my lord. The men who come through here to seek her pay more than that. I am actually lowering for you. I like you because you treat her well. My main concern is to make sure no one hurts my girls. Waylon laughed and shook his head. You say that, and yet you missed the bruise on her. I want to know who put that on her. Delena stood up again and placed her hands on her hips. You know I cannot disclose that information for you, my lord. These are men who are high in society life, and they can shut me down if I leak their names. If you are here to cause me trouble, leave. Waylon moved forward and pointed a finger at her. If I find her with another bruise, I will be returning to shut you down myself. Laughing, she walked to him and batted her eyes. Is that a threat, my lord? You alone cannot shut me down. The funding for this business comes from the king himself. Before you can even think about closing my doors, you would need to stop the men you walk with to stop wanting pleasures from my door.
It takes so little just to make me smile, but you don't seem to be around. My body aches for someone who makes me right, but you don't seem.
Maisie dropped the tunic into the basket of clothes discarded from customers and wiped her hands. It had been a long week for her, and she had been behind on service money. Last week, she was top, and this week, because she had been injured, she had denied customers. She once asked Delena to stop customers who put marks from returning to her, but when money was slapped in her face, she could not argue. She returned to her chamber and began cleaning up the sashes gifted to her from customers when the door opened and Delena walked in wearing a very sultry green dress. It outshined her, who was plainly dressed at the moment, but Maisie barely put herself together until she had to work. Your Waylon came to see me again, Delena said as she handed over a bag of coins to her. Your pay for the month. Thank you, Delaney, Maisie said as she took the coins and dropped it on the counter. Forgive him. I have. Too many times to count, actually. I know he loves you, but if he prevents you from working, he should at least make sure you are paid. He is a lowly bodyguard for the king, my dear. Why are you giving him your whole heart? There are many bigger fish out there to catch. If I were you, I would land myself a place in the king's palace as his concubine. Maisie smiled and shrugged her shoulders as she collected the blanket to make her bed. Delaney, becoming the king's concubine comes at a cost of me leaving you. Are you certain you can give me away? If the king offers to buy you, of course. His gift to me will be so much more worthy than that of your Wayland's. Then she stopped and inhaled deeply. He told me you were marked. Maisie hid her arms. No. Let me see. Delaney came forward and took her arms out to examine the bruise. Was it Lord William? Maisie nodded. He was on a drunken fit and used more force than needed. Well, she said as she dropped her arms, if he returns, I shall say you are ill. This shocked Maisie, and she laughed. Are you well? In the past, it did not matter to you what I said. Call it getting older, my dear. Wash up and come down for breakfast. There is a new girl who is coming, and she needs breaking in. You are the gentler of the girls, so I will need you to train her in. Maisie dropped the bucket of clothes on the table and filled it with water. The afternoon sun rose high in the sky, and she felt faint working on her laundry. But here, no one did it for you. She poured the jasmine soap into her clothes and began washing it by hand. Two working girls walked past her dressed in gold, smirking at her as they entered the building for their rooms. She rolled her eyes. Everyone here thought she had it easy, but she did not. Delaney never treated her any different, and she sure did not make more money than anyone else. If anything, she had a lot more to lose because Waylon did not like her taking customers. She limited herself to 2 a night and sometimes none at all. She finished washing and took each piece to drain the water out. One of her buttons on her sash cut her flesh, and she gasped, watching as blood seeped from the open wound. She dropped the sash into the bucket and turned to go when she ran into someone. Looking up, she realized it was Kaiden, her friend, whose father was a farmer who provided them with their vegetables. Kaiden was a handsome man with a body built like a warrior with long hair he kept down. He was secretly loved and admired among many of the women here. Kaiden, are you here to deliver the new produce? She asked. Yes, he replied as he reached her and took her hand. He frowned and looked up at her. What happened? An accident, nothing big. He tore a fabric from his tunic and wrapped it around her hand. Here, let me help you. He took over and began hanging her clothes on the line. When he was done, he tossed the water into the garden and leaned the bucket against the wall. Thank you. I gave you trouble for helping me. Not at all. I actually wanted to ask if you would like to walk with me to the market today. My mother asked me to buy some fabric for her, and I am not good at selecting them. You can help me. Smiling, Maisie replied, Of course! Let me tell Delena and then we can go. The market was busy for a late afternoon, and although half the vendors were closed, whoever was open had a good amount of goods ready for sale. Maisie found herself admiring some fabrics at a yarn shop, and she turned around to show Kaiden the gold silk one she had in her hands. Kaiden, I think your mother would love this one. It is so beautiful. The texture is smooth, and the silkworm here must have been so expensive, Maisie said. Perfect, he said as he turned to the shop owner. I will take a yard of that. Maisie handed it to the owner and walked on to inspect another deep red fabric. She picked it up and held it against her face. What do you think of this one? She asked. Smiling, he replied, That one is made for you. Let me buy it for you. It is too expensive for you to buy, William's voice said as he joined them. Maisie looked up to find the bodyguards entering the shop, and Waylon was leading them. He looked charming in his armor as he looked from Kaiden to her. But if Miss Maisie likes it, let me do the honor of buying it for her, he said. Maisie set it down. Lord Waylon, good day. He nodded. Good day, Maisie. Then he turned to Kaiden and nodded toward him before returning his gaze back to her. What brings you here to the marketplace? Before she could answer, the shopkeeper returned with the fabric they had bought earlier and handed it to Kaiden. He paid and extended his hand to her. Maisie smiled at Waylon and took Kaiden's hand. Lord Waylon, enjoy your day. I shall be returning now, Maisie said as she walked out with Kaiden.
In the club, in the streets, waking up. Yeah, always when we meet, something's still missing.
Waylon felt the heat burn him as he watched the two of them walk off together. From afar, he had noticed her and purposely walked into the shop, hoping to find Delena with her. But instead it was Kaiden, the man who he knew had a deep admiration for her. The guards who were with him stood confused as to what to do next. The shopkeeper looked up at him and smiled weakly. My lord, is there anything I can do for you? He asked. Waylon picked up the red fabric Maisie had been touching earlier and handed it to the shopkeeper. Give me 2 yards of this, wrap it neatly, and put in one of your newest jasmine oils with it. Of course, my lord, and may I say that you have excellent taste? You may, Waylon said as the shopkeeper took the fabric to cut. He would have it later delivered to her so she could make a sash of it and add some of the gold coins she loved to collect. The marketplace was busy for the afternoon, and holding the newly bought fabric in hand, the guards and him walked back to the palace walls. The king was going to be throwing a banquet later tonight, and decorators were busy putting the palace into tip-top shape. Tonight, he would have to go double duty, and he would not have a chance to visit her. He first paid a servant to have the fabric delivered to Maisie, and then returned to the study, where he gathered up the guards for briefing. I want 4 men stationed in the front entrance. Be on guard and awake at all times. Unless someone covers you, do not leave your post. Many people will be coming through, and some may have bad intentions. I do not want this banquet to end early on account of any of you forgetting your duty. Yes, my lord, the men said at once. Each post will have 2 men at all times, and once someone enters, they will have access to only the main level. The upper level is off limits to anyone, and 6 guards will be patrolling up there. Anyone who is suspicious will be asked to leave and limit making a scene as much as possible. One of the guests on the list is Prime Minister Douglas and his daughter Samara, who the king is good friends with. Yes, my lord. Waylon wrapped up the map and smiled at the men. Thank you kindly, and everyone be alert tonight. The banquet hall was filled with many people from all over the kingdom for the first season's banquet. The king and queen were in the main room entertaining guests as Waylon made his way around. The smell of perfume engulfed him, and he felt dizzy as he pushed past a busty brunette who winked at him. He rolled his eyes and she smirked as he walked past her to the dinner table where a feast was set out. To his surprise, Maisie was standing there with Delena, all decked out in a deep purple gown and a sparkling necklace. Her long curly hair had been piled on top of her head, showing off her slender neck, and she looked marvelous. Every male eye was on her, and she did not even notice it. And then her eyes fell on his, and her smile brightened. But before she could walk over to him, a man he knew as Lord Lion came to stand beside her and took her hand to kiss. She mouthed some words to him and then excused herself, making her way to the balcony. He motioned for the guards to be on alert as he followed her out. He found her standing by the railing, looking out over the kingdom. You look beautiful, Waylon said as he came to stand beside her. If this was a dream, I would be whisking you away to my chambers. She smiled. But it is not a dream, and sadly, I cannot enter your chambers as I am not of royal blood. The only chambers you can enter is mine, and of secrecy, my lord. Waylon lowered his gaze and kept his hand at his side. I want to take you away tonight. All these men are looking at you. Are you jealous, my lord? Yes, he said sternly and looked at her. Did you receive my gift? Nodding, she replied, I did. Thank you kindly, although Kaiden did send me one before yours arrived. Waylon let out a heavy breath. Kaiden. That man is an eyesore. Why? Because he can publicly stand beside me and you cannot? Precisely, Waylon uttered beneath his breath. Toss his out and keep mine. Laughing, Maisie replied, My lord, I dare not throw away such an expensive piece of fabric. Besides, what I do with my gifts is my own choice. You cannot order me about. Now, if you are done talking, you should return as your men are getting ready to change shifts. Waylon turned to glance inside, and they were indeed looking for him. His hands curled into fists as Lord Lion came out to join them, and she greeted him with a smile. Waylon returned to the main hall and kept an eye outside where she was standing beside Lord Lion, and an angry, roaring, jealous bird emerged from deep within him. Thank you everyone for joining chapter 1. Chapter 2 will be uploaded shortly. I will see you soon.
In the club, in the streets, waking up, yeah, always when we